The alarm went off at 6:30, but I'd been awake for hours already. My mind kept racing through everything that could go wrong today. Sarah's wedding was supposed to be perfect, and as her older sister, I felt responsible for making sure it was. Mom had been planning this day since Sarah announced her engagement 8 months ago, and frankly, she'd been driving everyone crazy with her endless lists and phone calls. I rolled out of bed and padded to the kitchen, where Mom was already bustling around in her bathrobe, coffee mug in one hand and her wedding binder in the other. She looked up when I walked in, her eyes already bright with nervous energy. "Emma, thank God you're up. I've been thinking about the flower arrangements, and I'm not sure the lilies are going to look right with the tablecloths. What if we call the florist and ask them to switch to roses instead?" I poured myself coffee and sat down across from her. "Mom, it's 7 in the morning. Sarah specifically asked for lilies because they remind her of Grandma's garden. Everything's going to be beautiful." She flipped through her binder, pointing at photos and notes she'd taped to the pages. "But what about the photographer? He said he'd be here at 2, but the ceremony starts at 4. Is that enough time for all the pictures we discussed?" This had been going on for weeks. Every conversation somehow circled back to wedding details, and I could see the stress wearing on everyone. Dad had started working longer hours just to avoid the constant planning discussions, and Sarah herself seemed more anxious than excited lately. "The photographer knows what he's doing," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "You hired him because he came highly recommended, remember?" Mom nodded, but I could tell she wasn't really listening. She was already flipping to another page, muttering about table assignments and whether Uncle Frank should sit near the bar or as far away from it as possible. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Is Mom freaking out yet? I can hear her from upstairs." I texted back, "Scale of 1-10? About a 7. Tell her I'm fine and everything will be fine. See you at the salon at 10. I showed Mom the text, hoping it might calm her down a bit. Instead, she looked at her watch and gasped. "The salon. I completely forgot to confirm our appointments. What if they mixed up the times? What if they don't have enough stylists?" Sarah's hair takes forever to curl properly, and the makeup artist said she needed at least 2 hours for all the bridesmaids and... "Mom." I reached across the table and put my hand over hers. "Breathe. You confirmed everything yesterday and the day before that. I was standing right here when you made the calls." She took a shaky breath and closed the binder. For a moment, I thought maybe she was finally going to relax. Then she opened it again. "I just want everything to be perfect for her. She's only going to get married once, and after everything that happened with David." "That's exactly why we need to focus on today being happy," I interrupted. Sarah's previous relationship had ended badly 6 months before she met Tom, and Mom had been worried ever since that Sarah was rushing into marriage too quickly. She loves Tom, he loves her, and that's what matters. Dad appeared in the doorway, already dressed for work despite it being Saturday. "Morning, ladies, how's the war room looking today?" Mom shot him a look. "Richard, you promised you'd help with the setup at the venue." "And I will. Right after I stop by the office for a couple hours." "A couple hours? Today?" I could feel the tension rising, the same argument they'd been having for weeks. Dad thought Mom was being too controlling. Mom thought Dad wasn't taking it seriously enough. And everyone was forgetting that Sarah just wanted her family to be happy on her wedding day. This was going to be a long day. By 10:30, we were all squeezed into Mom's sedan, heading to the salon. Sarah sat in the passenger seat, unusually quiet, while I was crammed in the back with 3 bridesmaid dresses and a box of emergency supplies Mom had insisted on bringing. The radio played softly, but nobody was really listening. "Sarah, honey, you're awfully quiet," Mom said, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. "Are you feeling okay? You're not getting cold feet, are you?" Sarah stared out the window at the passing shops and houses. "I'm fine, Mom. Just thinking." "About what?" "Because if you're having second thoughts, it's not too late to—" "Mom, please." Sarah's voice was sharper than usual. "I'm not having second thoughts. I'm just processing everything." I leaned forward from the back seat. "What kind of processing?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Tom's parents arrived last night." Mom's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Oh, how did that go?" "About as well as expected." Sarah turned to look at both of us. "They made it very clear that they think we're rushing into this. His mother actually asked me if I was pregnant." The car went silent except for the hum of the engine. I felt my stomach drop. Tom's parents had been polite but distant during the few times we'd met them, and it was obvious they thought their son could do better than a small-town girl from a middle-class family. "She asked you what?" Mom's voice was dangerously quiet. "She cornered me in the hotel lobby while Tom was checking in. She said she was concerned about how quickly everything was happening, and that maybe we should consider a longer engagement. Then she asked if there was any particular reason we were in such a hurry." "That woman has some nerve," Mom muttered. "What did Tom say?" "He didn't hear her. He was dealing with some mix-up at the front desk." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "But that's not even the worst part. After dinner, his father pulled me aside and told me that if I really loved Tom, I'd think about what was best for his career. Apparently, marrying someone without a college degree might limit his opportunities." My hands clenched into fists. "He said that to you?" Sarah nodded, wiping her eyes. "He was very polite about it, very civilized. But the message was clear. They think I'm not good enough for their son." Mom pulled into the salon parking lot and turned off the engine. For a moment, none of us moved. The weight of Sarah's words hung in the air like a challenge. "Sarah," Mom said finally, turning to face her, "do you love Tom?" "Yes." "Does he love you?" "Yes." "Then that's all that matters. Those people can think whatever they want. This is your day, your marriage, your life. Don't let them take that away from you." But I could see the doubt creeping into Sarah's eyes. The confidence she'd had just yesterday was starting to crack, and I knew that was exactly what Tom's parents had been hoping for. "What if they're right, though?" Sarah asked quietly. "What if I am holding him back? He's got his law degree, his fancy job in the city. Maybe he should be with someone who fits better into that world." "Stop." I reached forward and grabbed her hand. "Tom chose you, he proposed to you. He's marrying you today because he wants to spend his life with you, not with some idea of who his parents think he should be with." Sarah squeezed my hand but didn't look convinced. "I just don't want to cause problems in his family. Maybe we should have waited longer, gotten to know each other better." "You've been together for over a year," Mom pointed out. "How much longer do you need?" "I don't know. Long enough for them to see that I'm not just some girl who trapped their son." The salon door opened, and one of the stylists waved at us through the window. It was time to go in and get ready for the wedding, but I could feel everything starting to unravel. Sarah's confidence was shaken, and I wasn't sure how to help her get it back. The salon was buzzing with activity, but I could barely focus on anything except the worry gnawing at my stomach. Sarah sat in the styling chair staring at herself in the mirror while the hairdresser worked on her curls. She'd been quiet since our conversation in the car, and I could see her mind racing behind her eyes. "Your hair looks beautiful, sweetie," Mom said, hovering nearby with her phone ready to take pictures. "Tom's going to be speechless when he sees you." Sarah managed a weak smile. "Thanks, Mom." My phone buzzed with a text from Tom. "Hey, is Sarah okay?" She seemed upset when I called this morning. I showed the message to Sarah and she shook her head. "Tell him I'm fine. Just wedding nerves." But she wasn't fine, and we all knew it. The makeup artist had started working on her face, but even with the careful application of foundation and concealer, I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands kept fidgeting in her lap. "Sarah," I said quietly, pulling up a chair beside her. "Talk to me. What's really going on?" She was quiet for a long moment, watching the makeup artist work. Finally, she spoke. "Tom called me at 6 this morning. His parents kept him up half the night, questioning everything about our relationship. They showed him articles about divorce rates and statistics about marriages between people from different social classes." The makeup artist paused, glancing between us uncertainly. I nodded for her to continue working. "They what?" Mom's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. "They had a whole presentation prepared. Charts and graphs about compatibility and long-term success rates. They even brought up the fact that I work at the bank instead of having a career like Tom does." I felt my jaw clench. "And what did Tom say?" "He defended me. He told them they were being ridiculous and that he loves me no matter what they think." Sarah's voice cracked slightly. "But then he asked me if maybe we should consider postponing the wedding, just to give everyone time to adjust." The salon went quiet around us. Even the hairdresser had stopped what she was doing, and I could feel the other customers listening to our conversation. "He wants to postpone?" Mom asked. her voice barely controlled. He said it might be better to wait until his parents come around. He doesn't want to start our marriage with his family against us. I stood up so quickly that my chair scraped against the floor. That's ridiculous. If he loves you, he should be willing to stand up to his parents, not ask you to hide in the shadows until they decide you're good enough. It's not that simple, Emma. His relationship with his parents is complicated. They've always been involved in his decisions and they have a lot of influence over his career. So what? You're supposed to put your life on hold because his parents are snobs? Sarah's eyes filled with tears, and the makeup artist handed her a tissue. I don't know what to do. Part of me thinks maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not the right person for Tom. Maybe he'd be happier with someone who fits better into his world. Mom sat down heavily in the chair next to me. Sarah, honey, you can't let these people make you question your worth. You're intelligent, kind, beautiful, and you make Tom happy. If that's not enough for them, then that's their problem, not yours. But what if Tom starts to see their point? What if he realizes that marrying me really will limit his opportunities? Then he's not the man you thought he was, I said bluntly. The Tom I know wouldn't care about any of that. He'd fight for you. Sarah looked at herself in the mirror, half her makeup done, her hair perfectly styled. She looked beautiful, but I could see the doubt eating away at her confidence. I need to call him, she said suddenly. I need to know where he stands. Really stands. She reached for her phone, but her hands were shaking. The hairdresser and makeup artist exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the drama unfolding in their salon. Sarah, maybe you should wait until... Mom started. No. I can't walk down that aisle not knowing if my husband really wants to marry me, or if he's just going through with it because we've already sent the invitations. She dialed Tom's number, and we all held our breath as it rang. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Sarah's knuckles were white as she gripped it, and I could see her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. Finally, Tom's voice came through the speaker. Sarah? Hey, how's everything going at the salon? Tom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Her voice was steadier than I expected. Do you want to marry me today? There was a pause on the other end. What kind of question is that? Of course I want to marry you. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if you want to marry me or if you think you should marry me because we've already planned everything and invited everyone. Another pause. Longer this time. I could hear voices in the background, and I realized Tom's parents were probably right there with him. Sarah, where is this coming from? Did something happen? Your parents happened, Tom. They made it very clear last night that they think I'm not good enough for you. And this morning you called asking if we should postpone the wedding. I didn't say we should postpone it. I said maybe we should consider it if it would help smooth things over with my family. Sarah closed her eyes. That's the same thing, Tom. The salon had gone completely quiet. Even the hairdryers had stopped running. Everyone was listening now, and I felt embarrassed for Sarah having to have this conversation in front of strangers. Look, can we talk about this when I see you? This isn't really something we should discuss over the phone. No, Tom. I need to know now. Before I put on my wedding dress. Before I walk down that aisle. Before I promise to spend my life with you. Do you think your parents are right? Do you think I'm going to hold you back? The silence stretched on for what felt like hours. I could see Sarah's heart breaking in real time, reflected in the salon mirror surrounded by curling irons and makeup brushes. Sarah. Tom's voice was quiet, uncertain. It's complicated. That was all she needed to hear. Her face went pale underneath her half-finished makeup, and she hung up the phone. That's my answer, she whispered. Mom immediately went into damage control mode. Honey, maybe he was just caught off guard. Maybe he didn't mean... He meant it, Mom. If he had to think about it, if it's complicated, then his parents got to him. Sarah stood up from the styling chair, her hair still in rollers. I can't marry someone who isn't sure about me. The makeup artist cleared her throat. Should I continue with the makeup? Sarah looked at herself in the mirror. Really looked. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face half done, her hair a work in progress. She looked like exactly what she was, a bride whose wedding was falling apart. No, she said finally. I think we're done here. Sarah, wait, I said, grabbing her arm. Don't make any decisions right now. You're upset, and rightfully so, but maybe what, Emma? Maybe I should marry a man who has to think about whether I'm worth fighting his parents for? Maybe I should start my marriage knowing that his family will always see me as second best? Her phone started ringing again. Tom's name flashed on the screen. She declined the call. "I need to go home," she said, gathering her purse and jacket. "I need to think." Mom looked panicked. "Sarah, the guests are already starting to arrive at the venue. The flowers are being delivered. The photographer can all be canceled." Sarah's voice was firm now, more certain than it had been all morning. "I'm not walking down that aisle to marry someone who isn't sure he wants me there." She walked toward the door, still in her salon cape with rollers in her hair. I followed her, leaving Mom to deal with the awkward stares and whispered conversations of the other customers. Outside, Sarah leaned against Mom's car and finally let the tears come. Not the delicate tears of a nervous bride, but the ugly, gut-wrenching sobs of someone whose world had just collapsed. I wrapped my arms around Sarah as she cried, feeling completely helpless. Mom came out of the salon a few minutes later, her face grim. She'd obviously had to explain to everyone inside that there might not be a wedding after all. "The salon manager said they understand," Mom said quietly. "They'll hold off on finishing your hair and makeup until you decide what you want to do." Sarah lifted her head from my shoulder. "There's nothing to decide, Mom. I can't marry him. Honey, maybe if you just talk to him face to face." "And say what? Convince him that I'm worth choosing over his parents' approval? Beg him to love me enough to stand up for me?" Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "If I have to convince him, then I already have my answer." My phone started buzzing with texts. Dad asking where we were. The wedding coordinator wondering about timeline adjustments. A few bridesmaids asking if everything was okay. The whole carefully planned day was starting to unravel, and I didn't know how to fix it. "We should go home," I said. "Figure out what to do next." The drive back to the house was silent except for Sarah's occasional sniffles. When we pulled into the driveway, Dad's car was already there. He met us at the door, still in his work clothes, looking confused and worried. "What's going on?" "I got a call from the florist asking about delivery times, and then Tom called the house looking for Sarah." "Tom called here?" Sarah asked. "About 20 minutes ago. He sounded pretty upset. Said you hung up on him and weren't answering your phone." Sarah's phone had been buzzing constantly during the drive home, but she'd ignored every call and text. "I don't want to talk to him," she said. "Not right now." Dad looked between the three of us, clearly trying to piece together what had happened. "Sarah, you're still in your salon cape and curlers. The wedding's in 5 hours." "What? There might not be a wedding," Mom said quietly. Dad's face went through several expressions at once. Confusion, anger, concern. "What do you mean there might not be a wedding? We've got 200 guests coming. We've paid for everything. The church is decorated." "Richard, sit down," Mom said firmly. "This is more important than the money or the guests." We all ended up in the living room. Sarah curled up in Dad's old recliner, still in her salon cape, looking smaller than I'd seen her since she was a kid. Mom and Dad sat on the couch, and I took the ottoman, trying to process everything that had happened in the last few hours. "Tell me what happened," Dad said. So Sarah did. She told him about Tom's parents, about the statistics and the presentations and the not-so-subtle suggestions that she wasn't good enough. She told him about Tom's phone call that morning, about his request to postpone, about his inability to give her a straight answer when she asked if he really wanted to marry her. Dad listened without interrupting, his expression getting darker with each detail. When Sarah finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "That boy's parents sound like real pieces of work," he said finally. "But what does Tom say about all this? Is he standing up for you?" "That's just it," Sarah said. "He's not. He's trying to keep everyone happy, including them. He thinks if we wait, maybe they'll come around. But I can't start a marriage knowing that my husband's family thinks I'm beneath them." The doorbell rang, interrupting our conversation. We all looked at each other. "That's probably Tom," Mom said. "I don't want to see him," Sarah said quickly. "You have to talk to him eventually," I pointed out. "If nothing else, to figure out what to tell the guests." Dad stood up. "I'll get it. But Sarah, you don't have to see him if you don't want to." He opened the front door and we could hear Tom's voice from the living room, urgent and pleading. Dad's responses were shorter, more controlled. After a few minutes, Dad came back alone. "He wants to talk to you," Dad said to Sarah. He says his parents left town this morning after you hung up on him. Says he told them they were wrong about you. Sarah looked up at Dad with hope in her eyes. He did? That's what he says. He's sitting in his car outside waiting to see if you'll talk to him. Sarah stared out the living room window at Tom's car parked on the street. I could see her internal struggle playing out on her face, the part of her that loved him warring with the part that felt betrayed and hurt. What if this is just damage control? She asked quietly. What if he's only saying what he thinks I want to hear? There's only one way to find out, Mom said gently. Sarah stood up slowly, still wrapped in the salon cape. I'll talk to him, but not here. I don't want to do this in front of everyone. She walked to the front door, and we watched through the window as she approached Tom's car. He got out immediately, and even from a distance I could see how tired and stressed he looked. His usually perfect hair was messy, his shirt wrinkled. They stood facing each other on the sidewalk, talking. At first their body language was tense, arms crossed, keeping distance between them, but gradually they moved closer. Tom reached for Sarah's hands, and she let him take them. I can't hear what they're saying, Mom whispered, as if speaking too loudly might somehow interrupt them. That's probably for the best, Dad said. This is between them. We watched for about 20 minutes. Sometimes Sarah would step back, shaking her head. Sometimes Tom would run his hands through his hair in frustration. At one point, Sarah started crying again, and Tom pulled her into his arms. Finally, they walked back toward the house together, Tom's arm around Sarah's shoulders. So? I asked when they came through the door. Sarah looked at Tom, then back at us. We're getting married. Today, in 3 hours. Mom nearly fell off the couch. What? Are you sure? What about his parents? Tom spoke up for the first time. My parents left this morning after I told them they could either accept Sarah and be part of our family, or they could stay out of our lives entirely. I should have said it last night. I should have said it the moment they started questioning her. And you're sure about this? Dad asked, looking directly at Tom. Because if you hurt my daughter again, I won't, sir. I love Sarah, and I'm not going to let anyone, including my own family, make her feel like she's not good enough. She's better than good enough. She's everything I want. Sarah smiled through her fresh tears. We talked about everything. About his parents, about the postponement, about why he hesitated when I asked him if he wanted to marry me. He was scared of starting our marriage with family drama, but he realizes now that family drama is going to exist whether we get married today or in 6 months. The only difference is that waiting validates his parents' behavior. Plus, Tom added, I've been planning to marry this woman since our 3rd date. I'm not waiting another day just to make other people comfortable. Mom stood up and clapped her hands together. Well then, we have a wedding to prepare for. Sarah, we need to get you back to the salon immediately. Tom, you need to go get ready and make sure the groomsmen know everything's still on schedule. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Sarah got her hair and makeup finished, looking more radiant than I'd ever seen her. The crisis had somehow made her more sure of herself, more confident in her choice. At the church, guests were buzzing with curiosity about the delay, but once the ceremony started, none of that mattered. Sarah walked down the aisle in the dress she'd dreamed about, toward the man who had finally proven he was willing to fight for her. When the minister asked if anyone objected to the union, I found myself holding my breath, half expecting Tom's parents to burst through the doors. But the church remained silent, and Tom and Sarah exchanged vows they'd written themselves. I promise to choose you every day, Tom said, looking directly into Sarah's eyes. Even when it's difficult, even when other people don't understand, even when it means standing up to the people I love, you are my choice, always. Sarah's response was equally powerful. I promise to never let anyone make me feel small again, because I know now that I deserve to be loved completely, without conditions or apologies. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. At the reception, I watched my sister dance with her new husband, both of them glowing with happiness. The day hadn't gone according to plan, but somehow it had ended up being exactly what it needed to be. Sarah had learned that she was worth fighting for, and Tom had learned that love sometimes requires choosing your partner over everyone else. Later that night, as we cleaned up the reception hall, Sarah hugged me tightly. Thank you, she said, for being there when everything fell apart. That's what big sisters are for, I replied. Besides, you didn't need me to fix anything. You figured it out on your own. She smiled. We both did, Tom and I. We're going to be okay. Looking at her face, still glowing despite the long day, I knew she was right. They were going to be more than okay.